But one thing that you all know is he was totally devoted to Avatar Meher Baba, but he was also deeply devoted to Judaism, its history, its mysticism, its practice, and was very proud of being a Jew. One obligation that Jewish people have for those who have died is to say the Kaddish for them. It is done at every Jewish service. It's done on Yom Kippur, and it is just one of the things that is believed to help with however it helps. The interesting thing about the Kaddish is that although it is associated with the dead, as you read the prayer, you realize it is so much of a Baba prayer, because it is the affirmation of the supreme, wonderful greatness of God. And so, if you would be so kind, I hope that you would read with me. There is a beautiful version, the version in Aramaic. I can't read it in Aramaic, or even a transliteration, I botch it, so we'll just have to do it in English. Let's stand.
I'm all right. I love standing.
All right.
Glorify and sanctify God's great name throughout the world, which He has created according to His will. May He establish His kingdom in your lifetime and during your days, and within the life of the entire house of Israel, speedily and soon, and say, Amen. May His great name be blessed forever and to all eternity. Blessed and praised, glorified and exalted, extolled and honored, adored and lauded be the name of the Holy One. Blessed be He beyond all the blessings and hymns, praises and consolations that are ever spoken in the world, and say, Amen. May there be abundant peace from heaven and life for us and for all Israel, and say, Amen. He who creates peace in His celestial heights, may He create peace for us and for all Israel, and say, Amen. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.
I have poems from Sister Susan Shader, a couple of poems. And Andrea, most people know Andrea, she sent a page. I don't know, I'm gonna try. Let's see what Andrea has to say. I didn't look at it yet. Thank you for giving me a few moments to share my appreciation for Ira's beautiful soul. I'm so sorry I cannot be with you today, Steve, to support you and this most sensitive moment in your life. As I have shared with you before, I feel deeply connected to Ira and to you, Steve. When I heard the shocking news of Ira's passing, I felt an overwhelming sense of loss for you, Steve, but also for me personally and for the Baba family. Over the many years I have known Ira, he has been a model of compassion, always so caring about everyone. I was privileged to spend time with Ira while living in Myrtle Beach during those first years. I was president of the Circle of Friends. Ira always called me to invite me to special gatherings in your home where we discussed a myriad of topics about Meher Baba. Ira lived and breathed Baba. How did he live Baba? Beloved Baba was constantly in his thoughts and part of almost every conversation we ever had. He intently studied and read everything he could about Baba to the degree that he was virtually a walking encyclopedia of Meher Baba's life. He even wrote a book about Baba. I never heard Ira say a mean word about anyone. Steve, even at times when he felt he was rejected, his conversation would always center on his being misunderstood, because in truth his intentions would never be to harm anyone. He had so much love for everyone, Steve, and wanted so much to connect with people, but his mind was in a different realm of being, and difficult to relate at times. It was a challenge at times, and then a gift at times. Years ago, I was a gift when our Myrtle Beach choir, it was a gift when our Myrtle Beach choir encircled everyone at the meeting place singing the arty, the game set to music. It was so magnificently beautiful and ethereal that all of a sudden I became spacey and couldn't move or speak. I found myself in a different realm of being when I heard Ira's voice of concern. He noticed the state I was in and wouldn't leave me alone and insisted to get help for me. It was so strange to be able, on some level, to observe the situation and not be able to have my body respond. I thank beloved Baba for Ira's unusual ability and thoughtfulness to tune in and handle this awkward moment that came over me. Ira's thoughtfulness of me continued through the years, Steve. He would call me sometimes when he was traveling to share what he was up to. Also, I never ceased to be amazed how Ira always remembered me and thought to let me know whenever someone in the Baba family had passed over. Now it is Ira's turn to let go of this world and be with beloved Baba. An era filled with enigma of Ira Shader has come to pass. A soul who has blessed us all as a kind of Baba plant in our lives, according to our soul's individual needs, with a myriad of opportunities to love more abundantly and unconditionally, to practice forbearance and forgiveness at times, to enjoy the brilliance of Ira's intellect, and to appreciate a special soul devoted to Avatar Maya Baba, courageously willing to face the criticism of others to bring Baba's teachings to light. One of Baba's greatest messages was that he came to tie all religions together, like beads on one string. It is ironic then that Ira's last offering, open to the public at the Circle Center, would be a series so dear to Baba's heart, embodying that very message, Adventures in Comparative Mysticism, sharing the mysticism of the world's religions and how they relate to the teachings of Avatar Maya Baba. Surely, this offering was inspired by Maya Baba himself and might very well be a legacy worthy of our accepting, to finish the great work that Ira started to honor his beloved master, Avatar Maya Baba. As time goes on, all of us will think of this great soul of Ira's and reflect upon how he has blessed each of our lives. May the love of the Baba family today give you the strength to find a new way of life, with Ira inspiring you, no doubt, from the great beyond. And beloved Baba's unconditional love for all, Andra.
Andra, for those of you who didn't know, was Andra Bayless. She was president of the Circle a while ago, and she was the one that led the Circle to have a fundraiser and a dinner and a dance and a sale, and raised $10,000, of which $5,000 went to the center. And she's now in Washington, D.C.
Yeah. I don't know if this world was for Ira. He flew. When I first met him, I didn't meet him. I heard him at Queens College. He was on top of some buildings, and when I went in early to class, like 6:30, I heard somebody singing. He went like, "There's a high flying bird flying way up in the sky. And I wonder if he looks down as he goes on by. He's flying so free and easy in the sky. But oh Lord, look at me. I'm rooted like a tree. Gotta sit down, I can't fly. Die blues. Oh, I once knew a woman, girl. She lived on down by the mine. She ain't never seen the sun. No, never stopped crying. Then one day that woman up and died. She up and died, Lord, up and died. She had wanted to fly, and the only way to fly was to die blue. Richie Havens. Ira used to sing that from up in the roofs until one day I saw somebody with pigtails. I used to call out, and no one, he never responded. And one day in front of the student union, I saw somebody with pigtails and flaming coppery hair, and I ran up to him without introduction. I said, you're that one who's been singing up on the roof. And he had to admit it, and it was 1972. And that's how we became friends. There was always a lonesomeness. He was always seeking oneness. I left school because he wanted to find spiritual community, and I said this was a worthy. He really needed it. He wanted it, and this was a worthy thing for me to do. I wasn't doing anything particular in college, so we traveled all around, different communities all over the country. Wow. So one day in Greenwich Village, early on when I met him, I got tired of hearing about Mayor Baba, I'll tell you. But I had to. He said, Baba said you have to love all. I said, how in the hell could anybody do that? I was so shaken. How could I be open to the whole world? And he said it can't be done. So I just let it go, and I was entertaining such a revolutionary thought. Love all. And then I went on a bike trip, not with him, across country, and he gave me a Baba book, a thin one, that I used to read at night in the tent by flashlight or candlelight, and that's how I got to believing in Baba, because I saw such a vast, unending wisdom there. So, just a couple things that I've heard along the line. He told me that when he went to India, I never went with Ira to India, but he told me when Mahara met him, she lit up and she said, "Oh, you love Mayor Baba. I could see it." And the way he told me, I could see Mahara saying that. I could see it, she said. And she was very pleased. And that was always meant a hell of a lot to me. And there's stories with Muhammad the Must. He seemed to take Ira as a disciple, I swear. I ain't going to go into that now. And Eric had told Ira, he said, "You know more about God speaks than I do." How could you? What could you say about that? I could see it. So, it was a big blow to me when he left, but the diabetes for 35 years must have laid a lot of plaque down in his arteries, and he didn't suffer too much. He just, it was 1 o'clock at night, I went out to walk the dogs, and he was sitting in my room. It was the coolest room in the house. And when I came back, he was flopped on the bed face up, and he was gone, and I couldn't, I couldn't deal with it. I'm a nurse, stethoscope, everything, and I couldn't say he was dead, because I wouldn't believe it for a couple hours, and then he had lost a phone, it was misplaced, so I couldn't call 911. What a night that was. So, I guess, like a lot of people, they wait till someone has left the room and then they pass on. But anyway, I feel better. I feel like Ira, he lived his life. He lived his life for Baba, and now he's wherever Baba wants him to be. And I'm sure I'll be seeing him. I'll be seeing him again. And I want to thank everybody for coming out. I sure do.
Okay, I'm Brad Mandel. My story is similar to yours, Steve. I first met Ira in 1970 at Queens College in New York, and I heard this song. He was somebody singing. He was always singing. He was singing the Crosby, Stills and Nash song, 49 Bye-Byes. So he had bright red hair, and he was singing at the top of his lungs. He was singing 49 reasons, all in a line, all of them good ones, all of them lies. So I heard that, and I said, oh, that's interesting. That's like a, kind of like a spiritual thing, 49 reasons that you have, and all of them were lies. So anyway, I went over to him and I said hello, and he said hello, and then he started talking about Meher Baba. So he was one of my first Meher Baba contacts. It was in the early spring of 1970. The first time I came to the Meher Baba Center was in 1971, and it was with Ira's sister Susan, and a person named John Wallowich. We all drove down overnight. We got to the center, and I remember sitting in the gateway, the old gateway, and Fred and Ella were there, and we were just sitting around, and it was like we were all like smiling, like we were like high, because it was like so nice to be there on the center at that time. Ira was not the easiest person to be around. He had a very high developed intellect. Unfortunately, his emotional side was not so highly developed, as you all know. Ira was passionate about many things. The most was, of course, Meher Baba, but he was also interested in Sufi mysticism and Hasidic mysticism too. Ira once related a story to me about walking on the center. He was walking on the center when suddenly everything disappeared. He said he was in a white void with no up or down or sideways, no sound or nothing. He said it was very frightening, but after a few minutes, everything reappeared. So I asked him about it, and he said, well, it was like the void, being in the void with nothingness. I guess except Meher Baba. In the last few years, Ira seemed to mellow. Part of it might have been his health problems, which were serious and many, and part of it may just have been the fact of getting older. I don't really know. I knew Ira for 49 years, 1 year for each reason in that song, of course, was so he was singing when I first met him. I hope Ira had Baba's name on his final breath. Jai Baba.
I'm amazed how many people have come. I think it's really wonderful that as many people had connections with Ira as I see here. Is this microphone working?
Yes.
Okay.
Hold it closer. Closer.
I do have a story because I've known Ira for many, many years. And just like was said, he had quite a personality. His devotion to Baba was the most outstanding part of it. But then he had other quirks in his personality, which made life somewhat difficult for him. And he would feel rejected because people couldn't always get along or understand how he was. But just the same, he had a very sweet side. And in that side, when he would talk about Baba, he had many, many tales he could tell, many stories he could tell. He really spoke really well. One of the things that I wanted to say about him was something that he told me. And that was that he had thought to become a rabbi, which he would have been one of the chief rabbis, actually, because he had such a good intellect in theology and in Judaism. But in order for that to have been, the rabbinical association, or the people that would make those decisions, decided, because Ira would tell them that he's a follower of Meir Baba, and that he believes that Meir Baba is the avatar, he's the God, he's all of that. And this was too much for them to swallow, so they couldn't accept that, and they wouldn't allow him to be a rabbi, even though he could have been probably very good at that, because he was so scholastic. Just the same, he told him that no, he won't give up Meir Baba. He has to have Meir Baba, and he stuck with Meir Baba, and as a result, he didn't really follow what would have normally been his life ambition or experience in life. He couldn't do that because he wanted to be connected to Baba only, and they wouldn't accept that. So that was what happened. I thought that was something that Baba would find him to be very strong in his love, and Baba could do a lot for him in that way. Now, I have here a poem that I had written, and it's in my book, The Journey to the Beyond and Back. And I'm going to read this poem because it does pertain to the heart and to what, and I would believe what so many people feel when someone passes away. The title of the poem is The Sting of Death. The Sting of Death. My darling, I loved you in life, but only death told me how much. I miss you so much, but what can I do? Only once you have left your body, I was at a loss to see you. You have gone to a place beyond my sight and touch. What am I to do with my aching heart? It torments me beyond sadness. I miss you so much. A desperate man will do anything. So I remembered something that I read. It is said that there are those who can leave their body and come back to it as easily as taking off a coat and putting it back on. That this is not that hard if you know how. It is said that death is an illusion, that it is not true that there is no one that has never come back. Those who know the secret see with a different eye. Invisible loved ones become visible. Then life takes on new meaning. The sting of death is gone once sight is restored. Both sides of the curtain can be seen. Love matters most in this realm. My darling, I am always with you. How can I miss you anymore now that I know the truth? I have had to conquer death to be with you. Now I know you are with me, whether I can see you or not. Love is everlasting for both of us. Dear Lord, finally I know the truth. You never intended for death to separate us. All you wanted was for me to love you so much that I should want to find the way to be with you. And so the ignorance of death would be gone. And we could be one at last. And so it has always been written on my eternal soul, and so it is. Not till death do us part, but till liberation makes us one.
So the day before Ira passed away, I was selling a car, and I had put it in Craigslist. I posted it that morning. It was a car that Preeti was driving, the little white Mercedes, and by the afternoon, I had this woman call me several times, and she decided to come down and test drive it. So over the course of test driving it, we're driving around the neighborhood, and I'm explaining to her, all the information on the car and my wife, and we're driving by the center, and I tell her, this is a random woman, by the way, in her 30s and attractive. And she says, oh yeah, I know all about the center. Okay. And I said, really? She said, oh yeah, this brilliant Jewish man told me all about it. And all about this, who is it? The Mayor Papa or the Mayor, she proceeds to tell me, and she goes on, and of course, half of the information she's saying doesn't make sense at all. And I said, wait, this is Ira Shader that told you this, right? And she said, yeah, that's his name. He was just this brilliant, charming guy. At which point I literally slapped my hand to my head. And then I caught myself and I said, Ira was a true Baba lover. His ability to be an ambassador for Meher Baba was unlike, I think, almost anyone in this room. He had asked me a couple years ago to do his astrological chart for him. A compatibility chart with some woman from some country that may not have even existed. But what was interesting to me is that I found out that Ira was basically a triple Venus, meaning that his sun, his rising, his moon were all ruled by Venus, the planet of love, and the planet of partnership and marriage. And I'm convinced that Baba, like he often does, he takes what our main desire, our main thrust, and he sort of turns it the other way. Because if Ira had gotten married, he wouldn't have been allowed to, tell the 30,000 women about Meher Baba that he probably inevitably did over the course of his life. I'm sure Steve has a tally somewhere, but I think he had a type of spiritual confidence that I think is missed, and it's going to be missed. He truly believed in his conviction, and I think that's a very important thing. He sacrificed, as Erwin was saying, I think his life could have gone in a couple of different ways. But he also played a great role as an antagonizer, to Barbara, to the center, to the Baba world, which is an important role. I mean, it's easy to laugh at and sort of tease and, make it irrelevant. But I think that from that experience, Ira had insights into things that were very, very important. He was one of the few people that recognized the challenges or the lack of young people in this community, and how to pass wisdom on to them and what's going to happen in the future. These were things that he loved to talk about, and they were not at all threatening to him. And I think that was an example of he didn't cringe, he didn't get nervous, he didn't, throw up his hands and say, well, blah, 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 lightweight it, make it ambivalent. He actually genuinely cared And so even in his moments of rage and difficult behavior that I think most of us may have experienced, the point is that he cared enough. He wanted to connect, that he didn't just disregard it. He cared that much to get angry. He cared that much to get passionate about it. And you know, I look around the Bible world, and I don't see a lot of people like that. And so he really was a special man and a special soul, and quite a character, and brought lots of laughs, and he will be sorely missed. I remember one of the things he used to tell me was, the day I die, there'll be a line of the Barclay Brahmins wanting to dance on my grave, meaning that, you know, he never really, even though he lived in Barclay, he never really fit into the scene there. And so I can tell you, Ira, I don't see anyone dancing yet. No Barclay Brahmins are dancing on your grave yet. But no, I'll miss him, and he was a special man, and just leave it at that. Jai Baba.
I met Ira back in the late 70s, and I lived at Seacliff, and Steve and Ira lived a block away. Craig and Louise Smith lived on about a block the other way, on the other side of me. And we would, you know, cross paths, and I had a few Baba meetings there, and I got friendly with Ira, and Ira was really useful for me in being my friend, helping me get deeper into Baba. He was strong resolved to Baba. I remember when his dad passed away, I went to the funeral, and I just felt, you know, like I have a friendship with Ira. And over the years, we didn't really stay close, but as you say, his intensity and his firm belief in Baba and his strength and his convictions was just, no matter whether you agreed or disagreed with some of the things about him, was really remarkable. And he was a sterling individual. There was nobody in this community that I could think of that was similar in any way, just very individual. He was a good man, so Jai Baba, Ira.
To me, this is such a wonderful tribute to him, as incredibly individual and strong and crazy as that man was. He loved us, and he was loved, his love. So just to say, I had many opportunities to get together with Ira and try to work out what had happened or what was going on, or how I could help him or how he could help himself be more comfortable with people, have people more open to him. And I will miss that, because it continued, Steve knows, for years. And we would role play. I didn't think about role playing, but I'd say, okay, now when somebody who you're a little angry with is over there, now what do you know? Or when you look at that, some of these young women, the way you do, you just go ahead and do it like. Anyway, it sounds silly, but it was great. It was warm and vibrant and lively. He was such an inspired person. And he shared that in so many ways.
Yes, I was not able to be close to Ira because of some of these personality things that everybody's talking about. But every time I was in a discussion where he was in about Meher Baba, you know, he was so articulate and thoughtful, and I respect that a great deal in him. But another thing I wanted to bring to the floor was what a good friend Maureen Hurley was to Ira. When she first came to Myrtle Beach, she lived with Steve and Ira for a while, I believe. And then after a while, she was my neighbor, And she would be on the phone with Ira often, and, you know, could talk back to him and, you know, have real conversations with him. So I know that she cared for him, and I just want to mention that too. And I certainly respect Ira's love for Meher Baba, and wish Steve all the best in this new phase of your life. Jai Baba.
I know, Ira, that you are listening, and I know that you are having a great time with beloved Baba. Maybe you are in Mehrabad going around, and now you are here. To me, Ira was actually a very nice man, and he really respected me all the time. I don't know. He was, his manic effect was up on the air. So when I let it cool down, then he would go to his heart, and then he would have been a very, very sweet person, very loving, very sweet person. My relationship and my family's relationship with Ira was mainly on kind of a business, because he wanted to sell some of his paintings of clean art, and I helped him to do so. Or in poetry, in Hafiz, a study group that he would come. So he actually was an asset to our Hafiz study group, and he had I always admired his choice of words and the literature. He was very good in English literature, and we actually appreciated that. And just the night before he passed away, it was Tuesday night, he calls me, and actually his voice is still on my answering machine. I haven't erased that yet. And he said, Mehrnush, is very important. You need to give me a call. And then I called him back, and he says that he does have 2 lean art painting, and he wants to sell it. He wants me to help him to sell it on Meher Baba Art Connections, and because he has to pay some bills, as well as his taxes are due. I said, no problem, so I made an appointment to go on Thursday at 9:30. And so what happened on Wednesday, I was in a luncheon gathering, and we heard that Ira passed away with a group of friends. And I knew that Ira was there. His spirit was there among us at the time. So then on Thursday, as I promised to Ira, I'm going to be there, I went there, and then Stephen was kind enough to give me the lean art paintings. And sure enough, I was able to sell one to a Parsi Baba lover friend of me in Texas. So. And the money is coming, Stephen, so you can use it any way you want. Then actually on Friday, I had a friend that we meet online, and then I teach him Farsi. And basically, he did mention about this couplet of Hafiz, this line from the couplet of Hafiz. And I said, well, it's very much relevant to my friend's Ira passing away. So the line said, آسوده بر کنار چو پرگار می شدم دوران چو نقطه عاقبتم در میان گرفت. It means, rested apart from the world, I was like the compass. At last me into the center like a point time took. خواهم شدن به کوی مغان آستین فشان زین فتنه ها که دامن آخر زمان گرفت. To the street of the Moorian master I wish to go, shaking my sleeve of these calamities that the skirt of time's end took. میخور که هر که آخر کار جهان بدید از غم سبک برآمد و رطل گران گرفت. Drink wine for whoever at the end of work beheld the word. From grief came forth light, and the heavy cup of wine took. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba Ira.
Jai Baba.
So when I moved here, I witnessed Ira getting angry at someone right over there. So since that point of time, I just stayed like 10 feet away from him, but I loved him. But I never tried to closely interact with him. But I am happy to say that we used to meet at the Effort and Grace meeting right over here behind me. And there are a couple of occasions where, we read a paragraph and we discuss, and I used to say something and everybody says something. There were a couple of occasions where he was actually teasing me and I smiled at him. It was a pleasant interaction with him. I'm so happy to be a part of it. And also another lady friend of mine from Chicago wanted me to mention that she had a wonderful time back in the day listening to Ira's Baba stories in the original kitchen. And I'm glad that whatever little interaction I had with him was very pleasant. Jai Mehta.
Jai Baba everybody, and Jai Baba Ira, because I try not to believe that people really die. I think we're all reflected in each other's eyes. So looking out at all of you, I'm also looking at Ira, who's alive and is a reflection of each one of us. I guess I was as shocked as anybody to hear that Ira died, because he's always been such a part of my life, for better or for worse. I guess those of us who have lived here for a while, we're all kind of married to each other. Some way or another. And I've had my share of sweet times and also some bitter and times of suffering with Ira. But we've always forgiven each other. And it's funny, I think one of the reasons that this has touched me so much is I feel like the walls are closing in on me as my nearer and nearer friends are kind of like trees going over. So it's hard to believe when someone that you're close to passes away like that, especially suddenly. I'm actually really glad that he didn't have a lot of long, lingering suffering. I know he suffered from, especially with his feet and all that, but one of my early memories of being with Ira, we were at the K&W, a group of us, and the waitress came by to give us our iced tea or whatever it was, and I I don't know if it was out of the blue, but it probably was. He said, have you ever heard of Mayor Baba? And the woman looked down. No, I don't know if I have. Well, Mayor Baba is the one who founded this center. That you know about the center, the Mayor's Spiritual Center. And anyway, the conversation went on for about 5 or 10 minutes. And I was thinking to myself, doesn't this waitress, she needs to be helping other people. What'll happen to her job? But she apparently enjoyed hearing all about Baba from Ira. And I was thinking, is this the appropriate time and place to tell people about Baba? But apparently it was. And I always remember that about Ira, that he had the courage to share his heart and what was close to his heart with other people, no matter what, when. Ira had a wonderful sense of humor, and besides being a rabbi, he really could have been a great stand-up comedian. I don't know if everybody knows this side of him, but he was so funny, and most of the time he was making fun of himself. And he was just really hilarious. I also miss the great conversations we used to have, about Baba and spiritual matters, and he was a lot of fun to talk to. And then we used to play chess together. And, I never let him win. Maybe that was a fault on my part. I was just a little bit better than he was. Not that much, but I always seemed to win. But we enjoyed that time together. And some of the last phone calls I got from him where he wanted to get together to play chess. But I never responded to them. And for this reason and that. And it makes me realize that there are a lot of people that we know that we never get a chance to connect with that we could if it had been Bob's will. So I think everybody that made their connections with Ira, it was Baba that encouraged them. I think I'll just end with one little thing I read in this book of Sufi stories about what happens to a shell. You drop a seashell on a rock or something like that, and the person says, I'm like a shell. I laugh when I'm broken. And, I think that can be interpreted so many ways. But in a sense, the shell that was Ira's body has broken into pieces now. And he must be laughing tremendously to see what he's seeing from where he is now. I love you, Ira. Jai Baba.
I was saying, my name is Alexander. When last I saw Ira, the evening before the morning that he passed, we agreed that I would come to Myrtle Beach without my wife so that we could spend some man time together. Because seldom did he see me without my wife. But that's a good thing for me. But we had decided that we were going to do a good thing for us. And I always missed Ira before I left him. Knowing that I was going to leave his presence, always wanting to be in his presence. And when I was absent from him, he was still with me because he gave me so many jewels to hold on to. And one day he connected those jewels by giving me a picture of Bubba, which I relate to every day. The thing that I admired about Bubba, it's like my wife's former husband and my father and my father-in-law, they all represent and symbolize God to me. And Ira had that meaning for me, that searching, that reaching, as I was telling one among you today. My experience with Bubba was always one of respect, because I respected those who were in love with Bubba. But the one thing that drew me and kept my attention was their respect for Bubba's spiritual authority. So I kept watching that because I didn't come from that experience. And eventually, that observation of their tenacity to the spiritual authority of Bubba and interacting with Ira and the things that he would tell me to research and think about, all of it culminated to my relationship with Bubba today, which I believe is stronger than death. Stronger than death. But I admired Ira's integrity, his spiritual integrity, even among those who rejected him. And there were times when that was painful to him, that he was rejected, but he maintained his spiritual authority, he maintained his spiritual integrity, and he never judged those who rejected him. He continued to love them and speak well of them. Thank you.
Ira, I'm very happy that so many people came. I find it incredibly interesting. I appreciated Ira that he could be himself and be in such pain, and be in the community in such pain. Anyway, but he had good taste, and one of the things that I share with him is he loved these when Baba spoke to Narina Machabelli. So I'm going to share a couple of these with you. They are gold. Ignorance of man creates I and you, mine and thine. It creates the numberless divisions which set up man against man. All are really one. Cast away all pride born of folly. Cast away the cages of narrow sects. Cast away the limiting schools of thoughts. Truth is vaster than the vastest that you can imagine. This is all Baba, through Narina. Before you can hope to make the world different, you have to be yourself settled in sane living. Sane living is free from all snobbishness and superficialities. Sane living avoids all futile disputes. Sane living is free from peevishness, depression, and dissipation. Sane living is free from self-aggrandizement and self-conceit. Sane living is free from the craving for sensations. Sane living has no place for self-seeking wickedness. And this last one. Give up your stagnant speculations. Give up your hunt for sensational experience. Those who dare to do the deep-sea fishing shall get the matchless pearl of truth. They shall be blessed with the knowing, seeing, feeling of the supreme Godhead. You cannot know me without knowing yourself. You cannot know yourself without knowing me. I am your very self.
I just want to say briefly about Ira. I knew Ira back from the New York when I first came to, Baba came to me in the late 90s. He was part of the New York Baba House. Well, he would go to the meetings, and I remember he was a little eccentric, so to speak. But I remember him giving, must have been for Baba's birthday. We used to meet at the Madison Avenue Baptist Church for our meetings, and he gave a poem so demonstrative. It was almost, I was laughing because it was so like funny in a way, how a lot of histrionics to it, but brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. He used a lot of Greek terminology and just metaphors. And I loved to hear him. I was a young Baba lover. I loved to hear his spiritual. He was very knowledgeable about spirituality. I was very interesting, and I was also, being from Jewish heritage, he had a lot of, and you don't hear this much, a lot of information on Jewish heritage, how it connects even to Baba. He never really forgot his Jewish heritage. And that was something that I loved. It was almost an enrichment in this community, because so many of us do come from Jewish heritage, but like I said, you can argue, you don't celebrate it, and I don't, but Ira was very much proud of that and integrated that to the Mayor Baba, his walk with Mayor Baba. I moved down here in 2009, and he was there. He invited me to a men's meeting. I remember in his house. It was during the week, and he really very much a community person. And there was a lot of, I was intimidated by a lot of his ways, because he would get angry, and there was a lot of things, controversy around Ira, so to speak, which people have mentioned about. But one thing I will say, he had a zest for life, and if Ira's listening, I know he struggled with a lot of anger and things that made him sad, the rejection, things that can make anybody sad. He was misunderstood. But yet, he showed up. He was far from a shut-in, where that could break down people and keep people loners, isolated. He showed up. When this, being part of the Circle of Friends board at one point, getting involved at one point, I saw him here a lot. And this center, Circle of Friends place, will miss him, because he was here, at least in my perspective. It was good to see him around. Whether you liked him or didn't like him, he was around. And right before he passed, I actually hosted a meeting. A gentleman from Montreal, Quebec, came down and spoke, and gave a lecture. And this was the Sunday prior to the Tuesday when he spoke, and it was the last I saw him. He asked me how I was doing, and he was coughing, of course, and he would do that, but nothing unusual. And then I heard he passed. I really thought he'd be with us. I thought, he was 68, and I thought, yes, he lived a full life, people could say, but I thought Baba would keep him around. He had this role, whether it's the antagonistic role or the goofy role, or but you just don't know. So really, he'll be missed. That's all I could say. So, Ira, much love to you. Jay Baba.
So, the first time I came to the center, which was 1970, Ira was there with Susan and Dick and Louise Roth, brother and sister, and they came down from New York, and we were just blown away by the center. We were really riding high, and we had a magnificent time. And even back then, Ira showed signs of being a little bit out of the norm, he would go along the refrigerators in the original kitchen and just help himself to anybody's food. And in fact, this meal here is a compensation for all that. But he didn't have any boundaries, you know. But I hate to see anybody banned from the center, and sometimes he would get banned, then he'd get reinstated, and get banned again. I would try to coach him, you know, because I hate anybody to not have the privilege of being on the center. And I said, you know, Ira, you know, just, I got a solution for you. Just, you speak 1/10 of the time and listen 9/10 of the time. Don't do it the other way around, you know, because people get upset because you're going on and you're not taking the time to listen to others. Because I wanted him to be able to keep coming and just, I try to coach him, you know, so that he would, you know, be able to just be above reproach and below the radar. And I remember one time I quoted this Jewish proverb, which was, see if I can remember, he got a kick out of it. Only a rabbi whose congregation wants to run him out of town is the true rabbi. And it's funny because when I got into the Bible world, before getting into the Bible world, I rarely ran into many characters. But, you know, when you get into this Bible world, I mean, the percentage is way above the national average for characters, and he was definitely a character. But it's a great loss, you know. He was a huge person here in this community. I really enjoyed him. As, you know, as off the roll as he could be. But really, you know, the thing that's always impressed me so much is, you know, here we were back in 1970, and 49 years later, that same enthusiasm, that same remembrance, getting up and remembering Baba, and since he didn't work, he could actually think about Baba a lot more than the rest of us. He went down thinking of Baba. And it's like, it's a real big.
I didn't know Ira that well at all. I only met him once, maybe twice, but I happened to attend his birthday party at a local restaurant, and I must say he was a mighty great dancer. He outdanced me to a great extent. And that's all I remember and all I know. Jamie about him.
Just a quick observation, the turnout is a testament to Ira. And I'd say to Steve, he touched a lot of lives. J-Bo.
Back in the 70s, when I lived in Myrtle Beach, 70s and into the 80s, Steve and Ira, and they'd all come over and visit with me, and we'd all go out to have pancakes or something, go to the center. But it was always fun because I never knew when they were going to come. They just show up. And it was like a mini invasion. And I had to, I was usually working. I had a sign business. I had different things I was doing. And I would be in the middle of something. And come on, Jim, let's go. Come on, let's go. Let's go, girl, get some pancakes. Come on, let's go to the center. Somewhere, they always wanted to take me somewhere to do something. And you know, and they, it was actually always very good for me. I enjoyed their breaking up my monotony of my life and taking me away from the mundane and getting me into the sublime ridiculousness of enjoyment and play, which they always had, this playfulness, which I think was, yeah, a real blessing. we all get serious, and they were always very playful and wanting to, be in the moment, basically, I think, was what Ira brought. And, yeah, it was one of my fondest memories of my years here, was these wild invasions.
I met Ira about 25 years ago, and it was a very bad time for me. I was getting divorced, and the first time I met him, he was in this kind of a flamboyant stage, and he had on this bright silk shiny shirt, like red or orange paisley. I mean, it was like, whoa. And he was very charming, and he helped me. We actually dated 25 years ago afterwards, and which was a mixed bag, because he was brilliant and complex. And one of the things that we did share in the Judaism was Seders, and my daughter had a lovely one in Queens, and Stephen and Ira came, and we had a wonderful time, and then they continued the tradition up here in Myrtle Beach, lots of Seders, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And one of the most fun trips that I had coming to the center actually was with Steve and Ira. We came in the van, and we came along the coast, and that was a lot of fun, except when one of the dogs ate my scarf. Judy was talking about Maureen, and this is kind of, well, it's silly. We were always worried about Ira. What can we do? How can we help him? And because we really loved him, and we knew we couldn't really help, but she would say, well, maybe I should marry him. And I would say, oh, you really want to do that? And she would say, no, why don't you marry him? No, why don't you marry him?
Oh, my goodness.
So we never decided. We both were not marrying him. Anyway, he was a good friend, and the last so many years we really haven't been in touch at all because, well, just here at the Circle, you know his state, and okay, never mind. I loved Ira. He was wonderful. He loved life. He loved dancing. As she was saying, he loved music and animals and plants and people, and he really had a zest for life. So I know he's free from suffering, mental and physical, and I'm glad we were friends, and I wish him the best.
I just wanted to say something real quick. I'm very happy that I came here today listening to everyone saying one thing stood out to me about him. Everybody said how much he loved Baba. For that reason alone, I will ignore every other characteristic of him. And I wholeheartedly say, I love you very much, Ira. Jai Meher.
Ira and a friend of his named Trig, I think, told my wife, Louise, about Baba back at Queens College. Twig, oh, that's right, Twig. And apparently they told a lot of people there at Queens College about Baba back in the early 70s, I suppose, or maybe earlier. So I'm always grateful that got that kind of connection. Thank you.
When I think about Ira, as I've been sitting here thinking about Ira, the one quality that really comes to mind was a quality of soul that he had. It was like Ira's soul to me felt wide and deep and high. And that was the presence I felt in him. And I felt he never left that, even with this aberrant behavior and personality and the hard lessons he had in his life. He was spiritually a great being, I felt. But I also felt that he had been given a really hard life with great disparities in the level, his different levels. I mean, his mind was not just intellectually developed. I thought it was absolutely blindingly brilliant, not just academic or scholarly. And it wasn't limited to Baba or Judaism. It was so inclusive and wide. He was really a marvel. And then he suffered socially so much. he wanted so much to have a family and a relationship with someone. He couldn't achieve it. He could achieve so many other things and be recognized by others, but he suffered a lot too. And in that way, he really touched my heart. He was a very complex person. And I just felt a lot of what he had to go through was very challenging. And he never got defeated by it. He was always there, you know, facing it and living life very fully. I agree with what people said. He really did love life. And the animals and the plants and God and the community. And thank you, Ira. You're going to be missed. And you really touched my heart. J.
So, I had the pleasure of recording Ira's stories, about 4 or 5 or 6 of them, here. And my goodness, his life is so full, and he was so brilliant, obviously, and had such interesting stories, just full of life and all kinds of concepts and ideas about himself and about God and Baba and everything. And I'm just so happy that those exist.
Yeah.
And anybody who wants to get to know Ira better, they really do tell quite a story of his life. He said he was writing a book of his life, but he liked recording them. The last one was when I got to see Ira in full flare. I said the wrong thing. And I had heard that he would go off on people, but I never had anybody. I never felt the force of anybody the way I felt his force at me. And it was scary, but I actually cherish that memory of him. I've known him for a very long time. I was never real close with him, but I've known him for many, many, many years. And always knew he was brilliant and that he had a big heart and that he loved Baba. And I'm just glad to have had the opportunity to record those stories and that they do exist, because it would be a shame if they were gone. Thanks.
So many beautiful things have been said today, and I'm really touched. I just want to mention again, Ira had an incredible enthusiasm. Sometimes people will bring things down and they look at things that way. Ira had just a joy and so much to offer. And do you remember when he said they discovered the God particle? I mean, that was just so exciting for him. And I thought my life was better because of the times he'd be at Effort and Grace and what he'd have to share in his perspective and interesting details. You know, he was reading and reading and he would remember it. Thank you, Ira.